What if everything you have ever wanted was not waiting somewhere out there on a distant horizon, but was already here, hidden beneath the noise of your own restless mind? The Stoics discovered something over 2,000 years ago that most people alive today still haven't grasped. Something so quietly powerful, so completely counterintuitive, that it didn't just change how they thought. It changed what they were able to build, endure, and become. Stay with me. Because by the end of this, your relationship with your own mind and your own desires will not be the same. Most people come to Stoicism looking for strength, for discipline, for armor against the storms of life. And they find it. But what very few people ever discover, what most teachers completely overlook, is that Stoicism is also one of the most sophisticated manifestation philosophies ever developed. Before anyone misreads that, let me be precise about what this means. We are not talking about vision boards. We are not talking about repeating affirmations in a mirror while the world falls apart around you. We are not talking about wishful thinking dressed up in ancient clothing. We are talking about what Marcus Aurelius called the discipline of desire. We are talking about what Epictetus understood as the only true freedom. We are talking about what Seneca practiced every single morning before the sun rose. A mental discipline so precise, so intentional, that it turned ordinary men into extraordinary ones. Here is the central paradox at the heart of everything that follows. You cannot attract what you are desperately chasing. But you will naturally draw toward you everything that aligns with who you are becoming. Read that again. Let it settle. Because that single sentence contains more usable wisdom than most self-help books combined. Today we are going to walk through 5 Stoic secrets for training your mind so completely, so deliberately, that you stop trying to force your desires into existence, and instead become the kind of person those desires cannot resist. Let's begin at the beginning. In 300 BC, a wealthy trader named Zeno of Citium suffered a shipwreck and lost everything he owned. He washed ashore in Athens with no money, no status, and no clear direction. Most people in that position would spend the rest of their lives trying to rebuild what the sea had taken, anxiously, desperately, with white-knuckled determination to get back to where they were. Zeno did something different. He walked into a bookshop. He picked up a text about Socrates. He asked the bookseller where he could find men like that. The bookseller pointed to a philosopher passing by outside. Zeno followed him. And from that single, calm, unhurried moment of curiosity, Stoicism was born. What strikes me most about that story is what Zeno didn't do. He didn't frantically try to reclaim what the storm had taken. He let the loss reveal his direction. And he could only hear that direction because his mind was quiet enough to listen. This is the first thing you need to understand about the Stoic approach to desire. Your greatest losses are often the clearest signals about where your energy actually belongs. But a mind drowning in anxiety and desperate wanting cannot receive that signal. A mind that is still and grounded hears it immediately. Now move forward to 121 AD. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, commander of armies, ruler of millions. And yet if you read his private journal, his meditations, which was never intended for anyone else's eyes, you will not find a man intoxicated by power. You will find a man in constant, humble, daily conversation with himself. He wrote about what he learned from his grandfather, to be gentle and to refrain from anger. From his father, modesty and genuine character. From philosophy itself, not to waste time on things that don't matter. Not to be swept away by noise. Marcus Aurelius governed the most powerful empire on earth. He made decisions that determined the fate of millions. And yet he spent every single morning in quiet reflection. Not because he was weak. Because he understood something that most powerful people never learn. The quality of your outer life is always a direct reflection of the quality of your inner world. He called that inner world the inner citadel. A fortress that no outside force could penetrate. A place of unshakable stillness from which all genuine action flows. And he wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Not power over the economy. Not power over other people's opinions. Not power over how quickly results appear. Power over your mind. And from that single power, everything else becomes possible. Now here is where this becomes genuinely extraordinary. Epictetus was born into slavery. He was physically disabled. Some accounts suggest his leg was deliberately broken by his master. He lived in conditions most of us cannot imagine. And yet he became one of the most influential philosophers in all of recorded history. How? He discovered one truth that his chains could not touch. He wrote, "Men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by their opinions about those things." Your suffering is not caused by your circumstances. Your suffering is caused by what you believe about your circumstances. And if your beliefs are creating your suffering, they can also, when properly directed, create your freedom. This is the second thing you need to understand. You are not building the life you want from the outside in. You are building it from the inside out. Always. Without exception. What you believe, what you repeatedly think, what you rehearse in the theater of your mind every morning and every night, that is the blueprint everything else is constructed from. Not your wishes. Your state of being. Now let's get into the 5 practices themselves. The ones that will actually change your daily experience. The first is called premeditatio malorum. The premeditation of evils. And it is one of the most counterintuitive and psychologically sophisticated practices ever developed. Before you assume this is about pessimism or bracing for the worst, stop. Because it is the complete opposite. Here is what Seneca wrote about it. Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time. Think of 2 soldiers going into battle. The first goes in with blind optimism, assuming nothing will go wrong. The second mentally rehearses every possible obstacle, every challenge, every difficult scenario, and prepares a calm and grounded response to each one. When things inevitably go sideways, which soldier performs better? The Stoics were always the second soldier. Every morning, Seneca would sit in silence, before food, before conversation, before anything, and work through 3 questions. First, what could go wrong today? Not to spiral into fear, but to face difficulty directly in a moment of calm, when nothing is yet at stake, and strip it of its power. Second, how would I respond if it did? Here the Stoic doesn't just imagine the obstacle. They rehearse the ideal response. The response of someone fully in command of their own mind. Third, what is within my control and what is not? That third question is the hinge. It is where most modern thinking about success falls apart. Most people spend enormous mental energy trying to control things they cannot influence, other people's opinions, how quickly results appear, circumstances they never chose. Every ounce of energy spent there is energy taken directly from what they actually can control, their thoughts, their effort, their attention, their response. Here is what this practice does neurologically. When you repeatedly rehearse a scenario mentally, your brain builds the same neural pathways it would build if the event had actually occurred. You are training your nervous system to remain calm in conditions that would otherwise trigger panic. You are building what the Stoics called equanimity, and equanimity, true unshakable calm, is the foundation that everything else is built on. You will never build your best life from a place of anxiety. You will only build it from a place of clarity. Anxiety scatters energy in 100 directions simultaneously. Clarity focuses it like a single beam. Here is what this practice looks like in real life. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone, before you eat anything, find 5 minutes of silence. Sit upright. Take 3 slow deep breaths. Then work through 3 honest reflections. 1. What is the most important thing I want to create or move toward today? 2. What obstacles might stand between me and that, internally or externally? 3. How would my most grounded, most capable self respond to each of those obstacles. Then close the journal and begin. 5 minutes. 3 questions. Genuine honesty. Seneca did a version of this every single day. Marcus Aurelius did too, and the meditations we still read 2,000 years later were essentially his morning pages. That is the power of a mind that starts each day with intention rather than reaction. The second practice is what Epictetus called the discipline of desire. And it is the most misunderstood idea in all of Stoic philosophy. He taught, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish. Wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." That sounds, at first glance, like giving up. Like passive resignation. But that is not what Epictetus meant. He was not telling you to stop wanting things. He was telling you to change your relationship with your wanting. There is a profound difference between these two states. The first, I need this to happen or I will not be okay. The second, I deeply want this to happen. I will give everything I have to make it so. And I will remain at peace regardless of the outcome. The first state creates desperation. Desperation repels. The second state creates a kind of quiet magnetism. And magnetism attracts. Detachment from the outcome is not indifference to the goal. It is the highest form of confidence in the process. When you are genuinely at peace with all possible outcomes, when you have truly released the need to control the timeline, the method, and the exact form your desires take, something fundamental shifts. The desperation leaves. The anxiety lifts. Creative ideas flow. Opportunities become visible that were always there but hidden behind the noise of your own grasping. Seneca illustrated this with a metaphor so precise it stops me every time. He compared a wise person to a skilled archer. The archer knocks the arrow, draws back, aims with everything they have, and releases. Once the arrow leaves the bow, the archer has done their part. The wind may shift. The light may change. The target may move slightly. None of that is within the archer's control. But here is what the Stoic archer never does. They do not collapse in anxiety as the arrow flies. They do not berate themselves if it falls short. They do not swear never to shoot again. They observe. They learn. They knock another arrow. This is the discipline of desire. Giving your absolute best to the process, then releasing your grip on the exact outcome. Not because you don't care. But because you care so much that you refuse to let desperation corrupt your aim. In your own life, the business you are building, give it everything, then release the timeline. The relationship you want, show up as your best self, genuinely and consistently, then release the obsession. The person you are becoming, commit to the daily work with total discipline, then release the need to already be there. The arrow is in the air. That is all you ever needed to do. The third practice is a more fatty. Love of fate. 2 Latin words that represent one of the most transformative ideas in all of human history. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." A fire does not discriminate. It does not prefer easy fuel. It takes everything thrown at it, every difficult, dark, stubborn thing, and transforms it into light and heat. This is a more fatty. The practice of greeting everything that happens, the setbacks, the losses, the delays, the painful surprises, not with resignation, but with a fierce and curious embrace. Because here is the insight that changes everything. Your suffering does not come from what happens to you. Your suffering comes from your resistance to what happens to you. The failed business is not the pain. The shame and denial around the failed business is the pain. The delay in your plans is not the pain. The belief that the delay means you have already failed is the pain. When you commit to using every experience rather than wishing it away, something changes. Not immediately, not magically, but slowly and surely. The setback becomes the lesson. The wound becomes the wisdom. The detour becomes the most direct path to where you were always supposed to go. When Marcus Aurelius was emperor, the Roman Empire was struck by one of the deadliest plagues in its history. 5 million people died. Armies were decimated. Trade collapsed. Most leaders fell into despair. Marcus Aurelius responded with a more fatty. He did not minimize the suffering. But he also did not allow the catastrophe to become larger than his capacity to respond. He organized medical relief. He sold palace gold to fund the response. He led from the front. And in the middle of that darkness, he wrote some of the most luminous wisdom in all of human history. The plague didn't prevent him from becoming the philosopher king. The plague created the philosopher king. Your hardships, the things you are facing right now, the reasons you perhaps found this video today, are not obstacles to your best life. They are the materials of it. The only question is whether you will pick them up and build with them. The fourth practice is the evening review. One of the most powerful and least discussed Stoic habits. Seneca described it this way: I examine my entire day and review what I have done and said. I hide nothing from myself. I skip nothing. Each evening he would ask 3 questions. What weakness did I express today? What virtue did I successfully practice? What could I have done differently and better? He was clear that this was not self-punishment. The spirit of the review should be like a friend examining a friend, not a judge sentencing a criminal. But it must be honest. Completely and unflinchingly honest. Because you cannot change what you do not first acknowledge. Most people move through their days on autopilot. They react, respond, and collapse into sleep without ever truly examining what just happened. And then they wonder why they keep producing the same results. Reflection accelerates growth faster than almost any other practice. Not vague rumination. Specific, structured, compassionate honesty about who you were today versus who you intended to be. Most of the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not caused by a lack of opportunity. It is caused by unconscious patterns, habitual responses, unexamined beliefs shaping your actions in ways you cannot yet see. The Stoic evening review shines a light on those patterns, night by night, gently but honestly. Over weeks and months of this practice, something remarkable emerges. You begin to see yourself clearly. Not the version you wish you were. Not the version others see. The actual version, the one that shows up in your unguarded moments, in your irritable responses, in your avoidances and procrastinations. And when you see that version clearly, without flinching, without self-hatred, you begin to change it. Thought by thought. Choice by choice. Day by day. This is how Marcus Aurelius became Marcus Aurelius. Not from one dramatic transformation. Not from a single great insight. But from 30 years of quiet nightly conversation with himself, asking, who was I today, and who do I intend to be tomorrow? Tonight, before you sleep, try this. 10 minutes. No phone, no distractions. 3 honest questions. 1. What am I genuinely proud of from today? Where did my best self actually show up? 2. Where did I fall short of who I want to be, and why? 3. What is the one thing, not 5 things, one thing, I want to do differently tomorrow? Write it down. Close the journal. Breathe. Let it go. You are not carrying that weight into sleep. You are depositing it, consciously noted, consciously released. And tomorrow you begin from a slightly cleaner, slightly clearer foundation. Do this for 30 days. The person you are at the end will barely recognize who they were at the beginning. The 5th and final practice is the one that will flip everything you think you know about visualization. Modern thinking tells you to visualize your ideal future. See it clearly, feel it, claim it as already yours. The Stoics used a completely different approach, and in my view, a far more powerful one. They visualized not having what they already had. This is called negative visualization. And it is one of the most psychologically profound tools ever developed. Seneca described it this way: rehearse mentally the loss of what you love. Then you will love it more completely while you still have it. Try this right now. Imagine, truly imagine, that you did not have your eyesight. Picture waking up tomorrow in complete darkness. Now open your eyes. What do you see? What suddenly matters more than it did 60 seconds ago? Imagine you did not have your health. Imagine you did not have the people you love. Imagine you did not have the mind you are using to think these very thoughts. Now bring them back. Do you feel it? That quiet, almost overwhelming rush of gratitude for things you walked past this morning without noticing. That is negative visualization working. And here is why this matters so deeply for building the life you want. When your nervous system is running on lack, on the feeling of not having enough, not being there yet, it is in a state of contraction. Contraction narrows your perception. It makes you focus on the problem and renders everything else invisible. But when your nervous system is saturated with genuine gratitude, when you have just been viscerally reminded of how extraordinary the ordinary actually is, your perception expands. You see more. You connect more. You act with greater boldness and greater clarity. You take the kind of inspired action that only becomes available when you are no longer operating from a place of desperation. This is why the Stoics were such extraordinary creators. Not despite their philosophy of enough, but because of it. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire and wrote immortal wisdom simultaneously. Seneca advised the most powerful men in Rome and produced over 100 letters and essays. Epictetus, owning nothing, built a philosophical school that shaped centuries of human thought. They were not limited by contentment. They were empowered by it. Here is how these 5 practices work as a single daily rhythm. Each morning, 5 minutes of premeditatio. 3 questions. Set your intention, identify your obstacles, rehearse your ideal response. Throughout the day, discipline of desire. Give everything to the process, release your grip on the outcome, act from strength rather than fear. When difficulty arrives, a more fatty. Ask yourself, how can I use this? What is this moment asking me to become? Each evening, 10 minutes of Seneca's review. 3 honest questions, 1 clear intention for tomorrow, then let it go. Before sleep, 2 minutes of negative visualization. 3 things you would be devastated to lose. Feel the gratitude of still having them. Sleep inside that gratitude. That is the complete practice. 20 minutes a day. 2,000 years of tested wisdom, available to you starting today. Most of us came to philosophy because something in our lives wasn't working. Because we were chasing something we couldn't catch. Because we were exhausted. Because the gap between where we were and where we wanted to be seemed to keep widening rather than closing. And we thought, maybe if I push harder. Maybe if I wanted more. Maybe if I visualize more clearly or work longer or sacrifice more. But the Stoics say something different. They say, stop. Be still. Look inward first. Because the life you want is not built by force. It is built by becoming. Becoming the person who thinks clearly, who acts with purpose, who faces difficulty without breaking, who desires fully but clings to nothing. Zeno didn't rebuild his old ship. He built something that outlasted every empire that existed in his time. Marcus Aurelius didn't just survive his plague. He wrote the book that would guide human beings for 2,000 years after his death. Epictetus didn't escape his chains. He transcended them so completely that the word freedom means something entirely different when it comes from his mouth. This is what Stoicism offers you. Not a shortcut. Not a guarantee. Something far more valuable. A way of being so grounded, so clear, so fully inhabiting your own life that everything you are meant to create begins to flow naturally from who you are. Relax your mind. Not because nothing matters. But because everything that truly matters can only be built from a place of peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. You have always had that power. The Stoics simply never forgot to use it.